I listened to the first 5
Hold on a second.
episodes as
We're live.
So
Thank you guys for joining us as always. I'm your host, Ben Wheeler. I'm joined by my co-host, Anthony Marchetta, and Matthew Pungitore. How are you doing today, sirs?
I'm always good. Never had a bad day my entire life.
I can't top that, but I'm also doing great today. Thank you.
So, for today, we are discussing, I guess I'll play a little Hotline Miami. We are discussing the Magnus Archives, as well as building horror and the building blocks of horror. This isn't just like, oh, you have to make it scary, skeletons, spooky skeletons are scary. It's more about building that tension, building that desire, that scariness. That's an awful cough you got there, Anthony. That's an awful cough.
It's an allergy cough. Don't worry, I'm
sure?
not dying.
Are you sure that cough, though?
I'm like
What's up with that cough?
Sure.
Anyway,
I'm like 60% sure I'm not dying of the corona.
Welcome to Anderson Paladin. You see, that's an element of horror. You build up, someone coughs, and it's like, what's going on there? It's it's the horror of the modern era, the horror of 2020.
This is how the Mask of the Red Death.
Some juggalo, some juggling juggalo, coughed in the black room, and then it just goes forward. Hello to Megabuster Shepherd. We actually have a good crowd today.
Would Prospero even let in the juggalos? I mean,
see, this allergy cough is really annoying this time of year because it means that if I go anywhere and I cough, everybody gives me like the evil eye. I can't blame them, but this is like, at one point I had it so bad I actually went to the doctor, and the doctor literally just diagnosed Zyrtec. So.
Oh wow.
I don't know what to do about that. It's just what happens to me.
I get you. Is there no way to turn the visceral sounds off on Hotline Miami? Oh no. So never mind then. So with this horror that we're talking about, it's not just, oh look, it's a jump scare. That's not the goal of horror. It's quite basic, actually, to have the jump scare. You can build tension with a jump scare, but it's just not the same. In fact, people will complain. Let's try this one. If you have too many jump scares in a series, or if you rely on them for your horror. Most of the best horror movies allow maybe even an hour or more before the murders really get started. And it can really sort of push a movie up to the next level if it can hit those beats perfectly. Let's see here. Turn off the music. Hey, and it's got a sound effect slider. So with the Magnus Archives, that's the main focus here, partially because it's relatively well known in the horror circles as a series worth watching, as well as the fact that it's gone on for 150 episodes, which is absolutely insane, especially since they've basically done this for 300 weeks, because I think they release once every 2 weeks. And it's achievable if you're dedicated. And that's my personal goal for Pinkerton's Ghosts, which you should check out on this very channel. I will not be offended if you leave this live stream to go watch an episode of Pinkerton's Ghosts. Just letting you know. With it, like, I actually quite enjoyed it. I thought the first episodes and the first 5 episodes were actually... Oh, all my... things disappeared. I actually thought the first 5 episodes were very good. Anglerfish was a very good one. You establish the rules of the story, and I'm just going to explain it before you guys speak, but I do want to get your guys' opinions. you talk about the setup for it. You describe what the rules of the story are. There's one dude in a building in a room, and he is reading out loud the events of a deposition by somebody else. There are recurring characters who show up later in the story, and there's just horror running around. In this case, a man shows up at a bar. Suspense to shock value, slow burns are the best. Absolutely, Mega Buster Shepard. Man leaves the bar. All of a sudden, he sees a woman, and she's asking for a cigarette. There's a tension build up, and he basically runs away. That's the basic building blocks. However, the delivery is very slow and even measured. There's very little emotion in the telling of it. But sometimes there's a little something that slips through the cracks. A little fear. A slow burn. And then it comes back to, once the event is over, it comes back to the narrator who talks about it, essentially. But I actually enjoyed it, but you guys did not, am I right?
Oh,
Oh
really?
no, I did. I enjoyed it.
I'm sorry. I thought you guys didn't like it.
I didn't enjoy it as much, but I most certainly enjoyed it. It was very well done.
Ah, I getcha. Okay.
Matthew, what did you think?
Yeah. I'll warn people. I didn't get through the episodes. I didn't really finish them. I just couldn't finish them. I only finished episode 2. I got to episode 3. So whatever I say, just keep that in mind. I think modern horror takes the slow burn approach way too seriously. There was a lot that came off as artificial and too casual for me to keep my interest. You see?
I getcha. So it was too much of a slow burn for you.
I mean, I wish there was a burn. I wish there would have been some sizzle for me to.
I sort of get what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, in my notes here, I'm even looking back on it. Because I took notes like every 5 minutes, every 15 minutes, every 20 minutes, and
My God, you watched less than me, and you still did a better job preparing for this than I did.
I swear to goodness, Anthony. I swear to goodness.
I wanted to be honest. I wanted to be fair. I'm sure people who like the slow burn, will be into it. I just have to warn people. There's a lot about the dialogue. In my own opinion, the dialogue seemed very artificial. In Anglerfish, there was just something trite about the performance. I couldn't get over the fact that it almost seemed like the main narrator was just like, some things happened, and then, yeah, some other kind of awful stuff happened. That was weird, but then something else happened after that, and after that, yeah, something happened. It was just, I didn't know how to feel about all this stuff. Episode 2 that I did finish. Again, the voice acting was very subpar for me. It just felt like too much of common speak going on with someone who's supposed to be involved in archives and investigations, and I don't know, it just felt like the whole episode was like I was walking with someone talking about their very banal dream. Like, I don't know, that's just how it came up to me.
I have a question for you then. I am very curious now. And I'm gonna put you on the spot, so I apologize for this in advance, but I want to know the answer. Have you listened to any of the Pinkerton stuff yet?
No, I have not. I don't know what that is.
Okay, so you can't answer. I was going to ask what you thought. That's the horror podcast that we've started. I was curious what you thought of it, but you've dodged that bullet. You
No, that's
haven't
what I.
seen it
Yeah,
because
I
I
remember.
wanted to know what you thought of it. But okay,
Yeah,
I mean,
this is all. This
there,
is all new to me. I only figured this out over the weekend. I had to ask. I had to ask Ben about it. I was like, "What is it?" He was like, "Oh, this is what." I was like, "What? What?" I was very confused in the beginning.
it always hurts me. These things. So Pinkerton's Ghost is a series in the same vein of it, where a detective, three private paranormal detectives, are basically describing the events of a mission they went through uh, earlier that night, usually. Um, and they, how do I want to put it? It's a bit more pulpy and two-fisted than Magnus Archives, because it's more private detective-y. But it's also how do I want to put it? It's also very much in the same vein as Magnus Archives, I guess I'll say. Like, I don't really know how else to describe it, because it's like this. In the first episode, Jack Morrow, my character, wanders into the Missouri woods, is attacked by something called the Puppeteer, which is a spider made of mannequin parts. Maybe mannequin parts. Probably mannequin parts. We're hoping it's mannequin parts. Who is controlling somebody else, and he destroys a ritual site. The second episode with Jack Morrow is more him going into a cave and discovering a giant that's sucking the life out of another spelunker. It's a skeleton. He nearly gets sucked in himself. Ken Dickinson isn't here, but his character is Jim Donovan, who's more magic related. He saves a kid from a ghost, and he discovers the reasoning why a fairy is hanging around a country star turned pop star. Anthony, go for it.
I would say that we have a I don't know if very is right, but we have a different feel to us than the Magnus Archives. It's partially a taste thing, but I certainly like the way that we're, at the very least, putting execution aside because that's for others to judge, I suppose. But at the very least, I think I like our idea better because, as you pointed out to me when I initially brought it up, my criticism, which wasn't exactly a criticism, but was something I noticed of the first episode of the Magnus Archives, was nothing really happening in it. And you said, well, yeah, because this is about people who are witnessing these situations and surviving and getting away. And you're right, that is what it's about, and it is giving us exactly what it promised, so I could hardly blame the show for that. But Pinkerton's Ghost is not about that. The Pinkerton's ghosts, they run into problems and need to figure out how to solve them. It doesn't necessarily mean that they will, but it means that at the very least they are making the effort to do so.
I
And
get you.
for that reason, I think that there's more of a drive to our stories, which I definitely personally prefer. But then I'm a major plebe. Uh, I'm very lowbrow with my fiction, so make of that what you will.
Yeah, but you also like John C. Wright, so you're not as plebby as you think you are. You are patrician.
That's true. I do it. The fact that I've read Awake in the Nightland when means that I can't be that plebe.
I get you. So you think that with the oh my gosh, I just stood there and let him kill me. Uh, the Awake in the Nightland stuff. It's the horror element of it has more of a spiritual bent to it. As we've discussed this previously, and I'm just sort of summarizing. It's
Mm-hmm.
very Christian, even if it wasn't intended to be Christian. Though I do believe William Hope Hodgson was a Christian, that he intended it to be a sort of Christian post-apocalypse myth of sorts. Uh, with our last episode with John C. Wright, which was fantastic. Um, so the difference between the Magnus Archives and Pinkerton's Ghost is action, but also the effect. It's not just
Right.
so. Just a second. Megabuster Shepard says, so like an SCP mission log? Yes, but more informal. The SCP is defined by a certain formality. Even things like Herman Fuller's Circus of the Disquieting has a formal setup for it, even if it's literally a circus poster. So it's more like the one I'm writing here is Jack Morrow describing how he escaped a paranatural bioweapon chemical warfare package that was accidentally dropped in his area. And so the spookiness of it will be him trying to escape it as something haunts him in the fog. But that's like one element of horror. The second element of horror is him finding the victims that are melting into the walls and floors um, as they breathe in the miasma. Ooh. I think I'm going too hard with body horror, but I'm going to try and pull that back in the next week. Anthony, describe your episodes though, just so people know what they're talking about.
Sure. So, my episodes follow Pinkerton Detective Sean Russo. The first episode, Sean goes off into the New Jersey Pine Barrens about a mysterious door that leads to nobody knows where, but you would surmise quickly the land of the dead when he arrives at the location and finds that the town surrounding it is populated entirely by ghosts. The second story of that that Sean deals with is he goes to the inner city to deal with the werewolf mafia of the city has started mauling civilians in ways uncharacteristic to them, and he needs to figure out why. Uh, that's the short version summary of both stories, and they are very simple stories, both of them. Uh, Coming up, I'm going to be continuing the werewolf storyline, and then after that, I'll be, who knows, exploring New Jersey probably.
Nice.
But that's it. That's all I got.
It's all right, and he's underselling it, but it's quite good. And we're setting up a sort of mythology and themes that sort of go along with all the events happening today. All art is a product of the times that it's made in. So um, for Pinkerton's Ghost, we're going to talk about sort of the decay of America, the sort of chaos we see there, as well as what happens when people abandon their religion. I've been doing a lot of research, and I can point to 1978 as sort of a peak for these sort of things. It's also the year that the Southern Baptist Convention stopped supporting things like abortion and stuff like that, at least publicly. So you can see that there's this sort of like peak. You have cults, you have Jonestown, you have all these gurus who are wandering America for the last 7 years. Various places move, like 1972's and 1964's are also Nexus years, we'll say. So we're coming off of that. So the themes that we're trying to put in there also play into the sense of horror. This isn't America bright and shining. This is America that's like there's still many good people there, and there's still people fighting the good fight. There's still many Romans in Rome, but the barbarians are creeping in, and it doesn't feel as safe as it used to. So let's talk a little bit more about what you sort of felt with. Um, I'm just trying to think here. Felt with Magnus Archives. So the first one you didn't like the slow burn of it. Could you describe more about what you mean by slow burn versus something that isn't that's more fast burn? You know what I mean? Like, could you compare it to something more horror you like?
Well, Lovecraft is incredible in all regards. When it comes to quote unquote slow burn, we have the terrible old man, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, at first it's kind of like, you know, you don't even know who the narrator is, you know, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but there is a heightened mood, something that I know Lovecraft always talked about creating this tone. You know, like, okay, for example, episode 3, Across the Street, Magnus Archives, right?
Right.
The narrator himself seems bored to be there. Very low energy. I remember, from what I have here at the notes, it's something like at the 1 minute 45-second mark, he actually starts, for I don't even know why, he starts going into all this information about the courses he took, criminology, saying that he's an associate compliance analyst, and then he says something like, if you think that sounds boring, well, yeah, it is. Well, it's like, okay, you're bored, I'm bored, you've given me no reason to feel not bored. Like, the tone that you've set is boredom. So, like, how am I supposed to keep going from here? And then that keeps, and then, like, he says something like, I'm going off topic. You know, it's very casual speech. It's like, oh, da 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 da. Oh yeah, you know, I'm going off topic, but it's like, okay, like, it's very casual. It's very dull. It, I don't know. And then like they'll throw something in there. I remember then he was like, oh well, it was either I do this or I become an alcoholic. It's like, okay, was that a joke? Because I'm not in the mood for jokes anymore. Like, I don't know. It's just
Right.
it was very strange.
Like, I try to pepper, like, with Jack Morrow especially, his speech with like sort of sarcastic, like, tough guy. um I don't know what you expect from a detective. You know what I mean? He's like,
Right.
yeah, you know, casual danger. Yeah, man, not a thing for me. I'm a Pinkerton, baby. Um, uh, not quite like that, I guess. But you know, like, it's what you expect from it. That's the best way I can describe it, because nobody likes a boring detective who can't be sarcastic and
Right.
witty and stuff like that.
Right.
But at the same time, the focus is on the horror, and I make sure the humor is natural to Jack Morrow. So
You know,
hmm?
you know who had great dialogue when it comes to detectives? Mickey Spillane's Mike Hammer. Okay, Mike Hammer is incredible. I urge everybody to check that out if you're into private investigators. I mean, Mike Hammer is really like he's casual. You could almost feel like you could have a beer with this guy. You could talk with this guy, and it would never feel boring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think I understand what you're talking about.
So it's go for it.
Best dialogue I've ever read. Sorry, but best dialogue I ever read was Dashiell Hammett in Red Harvest. So many lines from that book. I mean, I know that that's a pretty common opinion. Dashiell Hammett's great at dialogue. You said 11, but so many lines from Red Harvest still stick out. I remember particularly there's this great moment at the beginning of the story when the detective, who's called the Continental Op, is interviewing the murder victim's father, and the premise of the story is that the murder victim is the only honest man in town, and and the Continental Op has been hired to solve his murder, and now once he gets there, like, they change their mind and they don't want him there because he starts poking around in the business, but he's already been hired, so he's got to get the job done. So he's gonna get the job done whether they like it or not. And he basically starts like a turf war in the town. Really classic.
Awesome.
It's a classic novel. The movie A Fistful of Dollars, the Clint Eastwood movie,
Oh,
is
definitely.
pretty much based on it. It's pretty
Now,
much based on Red Harvest.
would you say that Red Harvest, is there any kind of like homage in your work with the Pinkerton stuff with Red Harvest? Are there any connections there?
Only to the point where one day I would kill to write dialogue as good as Dashiell Hammett. But
Right.
these stories don't lend themselves, unfortunately, too closely to that style. But the line that I was thinking of comes early in the story. He's interviewing the guy's father, and apparently the murder victim had married I think it was a French woman or something. He'd married a foreigner before he'd been killed, and the father really dislikes that he married a foreigner. So he asks the father, was he cheating on her? And then the father answers, I should hope so. No son of mine would be caught being faithful to a French woman. He goes, but he probably was. He was stupid like that. And I remember that line and just reading it and laughing out loud and then realizing, okay, I'm gonna like this book.
That's funny.
A grade. That's A grade right there. But yeah, the paranormal Pinkertons, even though they are in a sense, of course, detective stories as well, they're not mysteries in the traditional sense. You know, they're not. So I don't know if emulating Dashiell Hammett, except insofar as you want to emulate that snappy dialogue, which would fit very well. But unfortunately, we're all only. That takes some practice, I think, before you could get that pattern.
Yep.
There's a lot of good Southern Gothic movies that have that kind of casualness mixed in with that kind of excitement. The dialogue there, it feels very rustic and natural, but it's also intriguing. And it is hard to do. I'm not saying it's easy, but that's what, you know, that's what you got to look for when you're looking for quality, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Elmore Leonard also has terrific dialogue. I was a big fan of the show Justified, which was based on Elmore Leonard. I haven't actually read a lot of Elmore Leonard. I did make a point. I want to say if I'm going to call myself an Elmore Leonard fan, I got to read something by him. So I read his novel Gunsight, which is a western, and I have a big book called The Complete Western Stories of Elmore Leonard. Many of them are actually fantastic, and I highly recommend them. But Leonard was a crime writer as well. He wrote westerns in the first half of his career, and then because the money was no longer in westerns, he switched to crime. And he was also an A-grade dialogue writer. He's also much maligned in fantasy and science fiction circles because he has the infamous Elmore Leonard's 12 Rules for Writing. And Elmore Leonard's 12 Rules for Writing are actually really great if you want to write specifically like Elmore Leonard. But if you want to write high epic fantasy, they are very bad advice. If you want to write, punchy, punchy, funny, slightly irreverent, but ultimately serious crime and Western fiction, then Elmore Leonard's 12 Rules will serve you well, but they will not serve you well if you're trying to take the One Ring to Mordor.
Right.
So he ended up getting. I remember Jaji wrote a whole article, and everybody agreed. And I felt a little bad about it because it seems kind of unfair to Elmore Leonard. But on the other hand, it's also his fault because he didn't write 12 rules for writing a book like Elmore Leonard. He just called them 12 rules for writing, and that's his own fault.
Admittedly, I don't pay attention to rules for writing, partially because it's like, even though I'm very much on the all art is objective. Oh my goodness. It's still, it's like, this is how this guy works. This is the Stephen King method. And I am Ben Wheeler, and I write Ben Wheeler style stories. I do not want to write about Maine or the horror of small towns.
Of course you do. Everybody wants to write about fundamentalist Christians in Maine who small children with unexplained psychic powers.
Right.
I love the movies based on King's work are always so much better than King's actual work. It's incredible.
Oh yeah, like people are like, yeah, I'm reading it. How far are you in? Oh, page 500. Oh, so you didn't get to the child orgy, huh?
Oh my! I
Yeah.
can't. I was gonna try to not even mention that.
Oh no, it's got to be mentioned. Like, cocaine is a hell of a drug.
It does, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that was weird. And I've never read King. I just heard people talk about that scene enough that I know the scene now. And
Yep.
it's weird. It is very, very weird.
The
Cocaine is a
Shining.
hell,
The
cocaine is a
Shining.
hell of a drug, and Stephen King is an SJW, so
Yep.
The Shining had some messed up stuff too, though. Like even Kubrick. Kubrick added a lot of that stuff in his movie. He did some weird stuff with it, but I'm loving it. I love what he did with it, and I think King was very unhappy. Maybe I don't
He
know.
was.
Am I right about that?
Yeah, he
okay.
was.
yes.
Yeah.
But the
He
thing
hated
is,
The Shining.
they did the Shining like accurate, and it's absolutely terrible. Compared to the OG Shining.
Yep. The OG Shining, that was actually an adaptation of the original version, but shut up.
Right.
We all know what you mean. But point being, yeah. So horror is very difficult to do well. Now, I like the Magnus Archives. The one part that I'm gonna have to disagree with, I'm gonna have to straight up disagree with Matthew though, is that some of it's a perspective thing, but I actually thought the voice acting was excellent. Like, I thought they really struck gold with that voice actor. He has not just a soothing voice, but I thought he really was able to do the characters well. He was able to put the right inflection in it and things like that. That is a very great benefit that they got, that they were able to find somebody who could act that part well. So I thought.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, as much as I say that I straight up disagree, I also can't really tell you what made it great, except I really liked it. I don't know. Seems
That's good. That's fair.
Seemed good to me. I did enjoy, one of my favorite stories was the one where he keeps the creepy coffin in his apartment, and he takes the key and puts it in a block of ice in his fridge because he realizes that he's going up in the middle of the night and sleepwalking to the key. So
Right.
he says that, so he realizes that it's gonna lead to him taking the key and opening the coffin, and he doesn't want to deal with that shit, so he just puts it in a block of ice and says, that'll wake me up. And it works. Like, I think that, if I remember correctly, they show up to his house and everybody's really surprised that he's not dead.
It's like, what, you didn't open Pandora's box, bro? No. Oh. Huh.
I'm trying to think what is the short story that's about like a guy who feels like he's being possessed? Is it La Orla by Maupassant?
I have no clue.
I tried reading some Maupassant on Vox's recommendation, but I couldn't, like, it was all French, and like I couldn't get into the spirit of it.
I remember, like, I would recommend, if you want to try something out that's like that, I feel like you're better off with La Orla, because it brings the madness in to such a pitch, to such confusion and bewilderment. Definitely check out La Orla if you're into that kind of stuff, because I think there's like parts where it's like the main character is like, oh, but who's drinking the water, or like who's drinking this stuff that I leave out? Like, is it me? I don't know. I couldn't help comparing it to other things. I was like, oh well,
Huh. Honestly, like, even though I view like literature as having devolved in the last 30, 40 years, it's still evolved way beyond what it used to be. And I think that's a pretty good thing.
You're gonna have to elaborate because I don't get it.
So, like, I've read some of the really old horror, Castle of Otranto, which was pretty good, and other things like that. But sometimes there are things where I just kind of roll my eyes. like with the description of like, am I drinking the water? Did someone else do it? You know, like to me that's not scary at all. Like I'm not. I don't know whether this is me, but actions taken when sleepwalking or not myself don't hold a big horror element for me. At least compared. So like for me, it's body horror. I am I am not scared of losing my mind or anything like that, partially because I'm already insane in the membrane, insane in the brain. So madness isn't really a horror. I view my art as madness tamed. Not that I'm not. It's not about the sanity. So that doesn't cause a horror for me. Demonic possession or whatever the horror of that doesn't really cause horror to me because I'm a Christian and I understand the rules for these things. Um, for that I need body horror. I am in touch with my body, so pains and pieces of my body, like I've never broken a bone before. So that's an element that causes me a bit of horror. Uh, the horror of being stuck in one place and not being able to move around.
Which is a very gothic fear.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Some of the things I'm going to do in the later period, I've got this. Not it's in the second half of what I'm calling the first season, but Jack's gonna dive down into an old cathedral old church.
Ooh.
Where spooky things are gonna happen, and he's gonna dive down where he's gonna see the ghosts of his relatives descending into the earth, and he's going to follow them down because honestly he's a very lonely guy. You know, he doesn't really have friends. You know, he was close to his mother who was protecting him from something. And all of a sudden these angel statues start moving whenever he blinks, keeping him from joining his relatives in their deep dark halls. And eventually he gives up weeping and returns to the surface world, having descended a toe into Hades, and now knowing that for sure that his mother is dead. Not that he really talks about it at this time, but he's going to in the next episode. So you see how I've set up this horror where it's the horror of all of a sudden realizing you might be the last of your kind, which is a horror that grips me personally because none of my relatives seem to be having kids in direct blood relations specifically, and I might be the only one of two families to do it. So in the personal sense, the more personal the horror is, the more strongly you can describe it and the more strongly you can feel it. There's a few episodes of the Magnus Archives season 1, which is about where I'm at. Where did I have that clip open? That honestly hit me pretty hard. Lost John's Cave, which was incredibly spooky, which is episode 15. Vampire Killer, episode 10, got me. It's about these two orphans being attacked by a vampire. Schwarzwald was pretty spooky, and Colony was very spooky because it's a walking, talking leech factory, basically. Ooh, no thank you. No thank you. Bugs have a horror for me. There's also another one. Bone Turner's Tale was spooky because it was about this book that gives you that gives you power over bones and distorts you. That was pretty spooky, but it wasn't the same. The Man Upstairs. Honestly, the first 5 episodes aren't as good as they should be compared to rest of the first season. There's another one, Killing Floor maybe, where it's this meat thing and meat factory, and this guy goes into a trance, and this guy just starts hitting himself with a bolt gun, and the guy describing the issue pulled the trigger. It's absolutely spooky, and I'll be playing
Nice.
on that myself. So maybe it's just like the first few of them. I'm not sure, but like I'm always curious about other people breaking down this horror, because it's audio by Jonathan Sims. Because there's also different authors in play. Sausage Sasha James is another one showing up a couple times. Christoph Rudenko. Actually, is he the author of some of my favorite ones? Sorry, I'm just looking through it real quick. Where is?
I mean, there's obviously a way that you can make an audiobook or a podcast where you're just talking and you're just relaying information. It's obviously doable. I listen to a lot of good podcasts that are like that. Just the modern approach is just too. I don't know if they're trying to be artsy or what it is. I don't know.
You see,
well,
go for it.
Go ahead, Ben.
No, well, like I was hoping you could expand on it, because I don't really feel. So, like, I can tell what's postmodern art, modern art, and not trad art. We'll say traditional art. I can sort of. I'm not sure what to call not modern, not postmodern art. Okay, like full disclosure, because it's expansive and it's everything not modern, not postmodern. I don't understand the feel of modern art of modern horror in the slow burn that you describe versus the slow burn of Gothic. Because at several points in, say, the Castle of Otranto, the first, true Gothic novel, some people would say, there are points in time when the silly chambermaid flirts with Manfred, the villain of it. Or they just chat about things, and it's kind of funny, kind of not funny, and I don't even know if it's supposed to be funny. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it adds a certain length to it. There's also elements of that in your own work, especially in the beginning where he's talking to the friends, and you get some good character development. But at the same time, it doesn't push anything forward. You know what I mean? They're just rejecting him.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm sure there are people who have said that my work is too slow. I can only say, in my own opinion, that what's different between the Castle of Otranto's work is that, it's just all about tone and flow and rhythm. It's just the Magnus Archives stuff. It was a combination of the writing and the delivery of the voice acting. And the thing is that I've heard audiobooks of the Castle of Otranto, and I never felt that boredom.
I get you.
So I don't listen to, or I don't read, I should say, listen to a whole ton of horror. I would have said I don't listen to any horror, or I don't read any horror, but that's actually not true. When I was thinking about it, I'm a big fan of Edgar Allan Poe, and Edgar Allan Poe is the most classic of classic horror, I think. And I love Poe. My favorite story by him is easy pick, Fall of the House of Usher. I read Poe in middle school on Halloween. I went to the library. I picked out a book on Edgar Allan Poe, and I read a collection of his short stories. Love them all. Edgar Allan Poe is very much about atmosphere.
Right.
I would say mostly about atmosphere. Like The Fall of the House of Usher, for example, very little it's my favorite Poe story. It's one of, I think it's a very uncontroversial thing to say, that it's one of the greatest horror stories ever written, probably the crowning achievement of Gothic fiction. All of this is, I'm not bringing anything new to the table and saying that, of course. This is consensus, right?
Yes.
And the Fall of the House of Usher, if you actually think about the book, like nothing freaking, or in the novella technically, nothing freaking happens in Fall of the House of Usher until the very, very, very end.
Right. It's not. It's not just that things are happening or things are not happening or it's just a conversation. It's the way that you present it and the play with words that gives that tone. You know, it's like I was saying with the Terrible Old Man that Lovecraft wrote. It's like if you really think about it, like what really does happen in that? Very very little. And yet, with the stuff that we do get, combined with the tension that's created in the writing itself, I mean that's the thing. I mean, what we're talking about here with the Magnus Archives is you're dealing with writing and voice acting combining together. It's different. It's hard to compare a written work compared to something like this. This has audio.
Yes.
Now you have to deal with a performance on top of that. Like a lot of the Vincent Price movies kind of gave a bad name to Edgar Allan Poe's work. Like a lot of people did like them, but
I love them.
yeah, I mean people do like them, but it gave this sort of, I don't know, silliness, let's just say, to Poe. That if you would read it, it's not what they show in the movies. And that's what I'm talking about. It's like you could have some of the best writing, but if your delivery of the words isn't there, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree with you. There's some things that are missing from any sort of recollection. Sorry, not did I say recollection? I mean
You did, and we're all very disappointed.
I did. There's it's also remembering, like, so Vincent Price. One of my favorite stories of his is House on Haunted Hill. His wife is trying to kill him, and she does, and there's murder victims, and there's like people who are suspects, and in the ending, and this is like the first version of House on Haunted Hill, and in the end, this skeleton.
Vincent Price movie?
Yep.
Yes.
Good movie. I actually saw that.
Right. I actually watch Vincent Price movies most Halloweens. I actually like watch horror like during this time. I want to watch The Thing. I think I'm going to watch that after this.
Hey,
you should watch
next week. That's what we're talking about, Ben. There you go. Because I also wanted to watch The Thing.
Absolutely.
You should watch the original black and white version.
Isn't that
That's
Vincent
what
Price?
I was thinking. The 50s version of The Thing, right?
Yeah, The Thing from Another World.
From Howard. It's a Howard Hawk movie.
Let's see.
I watched Frankenstein recently, and it was quite good, though. I thought that it slowed down after they got out of the lab. But all of the lab scenes in Frankenstein are A++ stuff. And everybody talks about how good Boris Karloff was as the monster, and he was. But the dude who played Frankenstein, by the way, you know his name is Henry Frankenstein, and his assistant is named Fritz, not Igor. What's up with that? But whatever. Anyway.
No, you're totally right. That's what I'm saying. It's like movies can give a distortion of the literature.
It was really good. I mean, once again, Frankenstein's a good movie, news at 11 type thing. But I thought it dragged a little bit after they got out of the laboratory. But I thought the dude who played Frankenstein, not the monster, the scientist, he was really good. He has this line where like his fiance shows up to his evil laboratory, and it's totally an evil laboratory. And hilariously, he doesn't seem to realize that it's an evil laboratory. But his girlfriend shows up to his fiance shows up to his evil laboratory with like his professor, who's his mentor, because she reasons he respects you, he'll listen to you, and he's telling them, get out. This is dangerous. You shouldn't be here. And the guy calls him. He says, "You're trying to create life. You're crazy. What's wrong with you? You're crazy." And there's just this look. They show the actor's face. They have a close up of it, and you could just see his jaw sets, and his eyes grow cold. And he goes, "Crazy, am I?" And tell you what. How about he goes, "Stay." Then they go, why don't you stay?" And I just thought that scene was really good. That, and of course the scene where they revive the monster. They have this massive platform that raises into the sky while there's a storm going on. All of this electrical equipment is going off. Uh, then they have a little bit after the monster escapes, and he's wandering around the countryside, and I got a little bit bored. Though it picks up at the ending when the mob attacks. I really want to watch Bride of Frankenstein now, though, because supposedly it's even better. These these movies, of course, have literally nothing to do with the books that they're based on. And by books
Right.
that they're based on, I mean single book, because there is no Bride of Frankenstein book. There was never a Bride of Frankenstein. Uh, the Frankenstein book is completely, almost unrelated to the movie. But it that Mary Shelley does show up in Bride of Frankenstein as a freaking character somehow. So
Whoa.
Right.
along with Percy Bysshe Shelley. So
Right.
go figure.
Is there any sweet Lord Byron action?
No, it's just the framing device.
Yeah.
Oh,
See,
I'm just
in
To
my
my
in
knowledge,
my
I'm gonna have to watch the movie, but to my knowledge, it's just the framing device. Frankenstein also starts off with an announcer coming out and warning the crowd that the movie might be too much for their nerves. And I watched it and I said, if I were around in the 1930s, that had to be metal as hell.
you know who
women may
pulls
faint.
the Fly pulls that off really well. There was a commercial for it. I think it's just literally people screaming, and then Vincent Price rushing out of the shadows, and he says something to the effect of this is all too horrible to talk about. If, watch if you dare, basically.
The best part of the Frankenstein thing was that I'm pretty sure it wasn't originally a marketing thing, though. If you look at the scene itself, they certainly were using it for marketing because he played it up. But I think they actually asked them to add something. But the dude who does it, he goes, "Well, we did warn you," and he slinks in. I'm like, that had to be so metal in the 30s.
I mean, it's still a good effect. Creates emotion, good emotion. I liked it.
It's a good effect if you can if you can talk the talk. If not, it's just really cheesy. And it's still really cheesy, but it's awesomely cheesy if you can pull it off.
Dead Space 2 did it for their marketing.
Sometimes I feel like I'd rather just have the cheese, just for the sake of the cheese.
Yeah, and also I thought of the scene. I don't know if you know the episode of SpongeBob, the Fry Cook Games. They have Plankton is announcing to a crowd of people who's gonna be competing on behalf of the Chum Bucket, and he goes, "There's somebody who's so I can't remember his exact words. It's he's so terrifying that those of you with weak constitutions may want to leave the stadium." And there's this guy in the audience who yells, "I gotta get out of here." And Plankton yells, "Too late!" And Plankton yells, "Too late!"
That's too
And he goes,
good.
and now they can, and he goes, "I introduce the guy who's going to be introducing the real contestant, Patrick Star." Classic SpongeBob, man. First 3 seasons of SpongeBob were all A++. I could honestly just talk about the horror parodies in SpongeBob, the hash slinging slasher
Oh,
episode,
obviously.
the nasty patty episode where they think they kill the health inspector. I could
Beautiful.
probably talk for hours about them, but I won't because that's really, really off topic. But it did make me think of, whenever I watch the scene in Frankenstein, it makes me think of that scene
Right.
from Fry Cook Games.
No, I get it. I get you.
That's hard. That's not the fault of Frankenstein, I guess, or in it. I suppose it is in an indirect way, in that it might have, led to that sort of trope being a thing. But I mean, it still worked in the context of the movie because the movie could cash checks.
Yeah, and like if
It
it
set up a certain expectation.
yeah, and of course, like not hitting those expectations is worse than if you had never set those expectations at all. Like honestly, with this stuff, you can do all sorts of things, but if you can't back it up, it's like just don't waste Vincent Price.
I think
Yeah.
somewhere along the line, Vincent Price just ended up becoming a caricature of his own career. Like, I don't know. There's something about him that when he's performing and he's doing his Vincent Price thing as an actor, his work to me just comes off as comedy.
He was always a caricature of himself.
Yes,
But that's why we loved him.
Like
he was
Peter
a Missourian
Cushing,
too, a St. Louisan.
He was also the great. He also played Ratigan in The Great Mouse Detective and made that entire freaking movie. That's like an okay cartoon, but it has Vincent Price as the villain, and he hams it up so much. It's delightful.
Yeah,
He-
Ham.
he-
That's
He
exactly it.
purrs.
Yeah.
He has the scene in there where he has he's called Basil in the movie, but he's Sherlock Holmes. They're Sherlock Holmes, but nice. And he has a scene where he has Holmes in a death trap, and he has a song playing. That when the song ends, the trap will trigger.
Yeah.
So soon.
And that scene is so delightful. Forget the dialogue around it. Like, who cares? He talks him into getting out of it, and it's fine. Like, there was nothing wrong with it. It worked. But Vincent Price singing "Goodbye So Soon," just he sounded so delighted.
Vincent Price rapping makes every Halloween.
Vincent Price in The Great Mouse Detective is a movie that I enjoy, but it's like 90% because of Vincent Price.
Right. I thought it was
his work and Thriller.
I like.
Is just...
I suppose I like the dude who played Holmes too. He was pretty good, whoever that guy was.
Could Halloween even be Halloween without Vincent Price's rapping and Thriller? I mean,
he didn't really rap.
Close enough. Shut up, Ben.
Okay, fine.
Don't ruin the dream. Don't ruin our fun. You want to think about Vincent Price rapping. Don't quibble over the precise definition of rap.
Okay, fine.
But yeah, The Haunting. So each Halloween, I do try and watch like at least one new horror movie, and hopefully a couple. So I watched Frankenstein this year, and I'm gonna try and watch The Bride of Frankenstein. Last year, I watched Scream, which was very good, by the way. I also watched Scream 2, which was not good. And
so you watched Scream 1 and Scream 2.
Mm-hmm. Scream was great, and I really enjoyed it. I don't watch it. I guess Scream by default. I don't know. I haven't watched
Halloween.
I like Scream a lot. Scream was very good. Scream 2 was terrible. Scream was also almost a black comedy. Like, it was right on the edge of being a black comedy. So
in Scary Movie, I forget if it's
careful with that too.
Scary Movie 1 or 2. I believe the Ghostface killer is trying to he's doing the whole "What's your favorite scary movie" thing, and then the whole "Was up" thing, where everyone in the frat house is doing the "Was up" scream.
Was up.
And then and then his mask changes, so his, the tongue is out, his eyes are all squinted. He's doing the "Was up" thing.
Honestly, I thought Scream was a comedy film. I did not.
Obviously, it was. It definitely was.
I think it's a black. I would call it like a black horror comedy. It's very dry, which is right up my alley, by the way.
I don't like how it set up a rules of slasher films, though. I feel like we really got to get away from the whole like, oh man, it's so meta because there's rules of slasher movies and
Oh,
there's
that's
rules of
what killed
life.
Scream. You're right. It's a very, very tight balancing act, and that's what killed Scream 2. That's why Scream 2, which somehow has better reviews because critics are dumb, was terrible except for like one scene. There is one scene where there's one of the characters is trapped in a soundproof booth, and this is like not a comedy scene actually, and you see the killer. She's trapped inside, and the killer tries to get in and can't, and then you see somebody shows up on the other side of the booth, and she's
Right.
screaming for him to get away, and of course he can't hear her.
Yeah,
And they
yeah.
kill him right on the edge of the booth. That scene was metal, and I loved it. The rest of the movie was just terrible.
The funny thing about that though is I think that's when, what is it, like Dewey, the cop, he gets stabbed in a certain way so that we, like, for the rest of the movie and every other Scream movie after that, he has to walk with a limp.
Well, they make it like they kill. They only reveal at the very end that he survived the stabbing.
Right. I can't remember if that's like a thing. Because I feel
But
like
you're 100% correct about the meta thing with Scream.
yeah.
Killed, even they couldn't survive it. You know, I thought the original Scream towed the line, but it's a very, very difficult tightrope,
Well,
and Scream 2 could not do it.
each Scream just then tried to become more meta than possible. I think at Scream 4 was like, we're gonna film ourselves being filmed while we film. It's like everyone's being filmed, you're being filmed, everything is filmed, it's all live. It's just, it's too on the nose. It's too postmodernist.
But the original had some. The original had some moments, and I enjoyed it. I did like, but I liked Frankenstein. The Haunting on Hill House was really excellent. I want to watch the movies that I want to watch. I want to watch the 1930s The Haunting.
Right.
I want to watch Bride of Frankenstein. I do want to see, and I probably will soon since I just watched Frankenstein. But I want to see. Oh yeah, John Carpenter's The Thing, right?
Yep.
There are
Yeah.
two things: the 1950s thing and the John Carpenter thing. The John Carpenter one is supposed to be better, but the original is not supposed to be bad.
It's, to me, I just like viewing the best version of it more than anything else. Like it's good. Like I
Supposedly they're very different movies, but yeah, they're like really dissimilar films. So to compare the two is, I mean, you should because it is a remake, but at the same time, like they weren't trying for the same sorts of things. You know,
The
going for
Haunting,
the same sorts of things.
is that 1963?
I might have, yeah,
1950 something.
overshot the.
Is that the
I
one
might
where
have
it's like
overshot the date.
this woman is like taking care of her like mother or something, and then she like wins some kind of like game show to be in this like weird haunted house that's like under the supervision of like a scientist or something?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's some. Yeah, that is a great movie, and it's a great example of how to do a slow burn. If you want, like, you know, like especially in to go back and defend my work just for a quick second, I try to do something similar where even if nothing is happening, the tone must still be tense, and there should still be emotion. There should still be a sense of mystery and wanting to know more. Even if nothing is happening, you can still make that fun and enjoyable to listen to or to read. The Haunting as a movie is great at doing that, where you may feel like not a lot is happening and you're getting some little creepy bits here and there, few and far between, but it's very engaging. You know? I definitely recommend that movie.
Yeah, I'll give that a shot. I know they made a awful remake of it starring Owen Wilson of all people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
Wow.
why? Why would you do that? It just doesn't make any sense to me. But what do I know? I'm just a pulp horror writer.
Yes.
I don't know no. I don't know no big fancy Hollywood movie magic talk.
I am just a humble meme farmer, farming my memes.
What's the name of that movie with him in the haunted house there with Catherine Zeta-Jones and the guy who's always looking for
The
his
Haunt-
family? The Haunting?
That was The Haunting.
Yep.
Yeah,
It
that
was
was the
pretty
remake.
good.
That was it.
It
Do
was
you
better.
think so?
It was better than you remember. But it's
Ooh, interesting.
but it also like was before I really got into horror, so I don't know if it'll keep up. You know what I mean? Like compared
Okay,
to
so
Mhm.
yeah. The
So-
Haunting is the 1999. The one I was talking about was the 1959 novel and then like the 1960s movie.
Okay.
Yeah, that's and then they made another remake of it, a Netflix remake. They
Yeah.
made like a mini-series version.
Okay, I'm just like
I
trying
didn't
to
know
keep
that.
it all straight, trying to so many I'm trying to make sure I understand what we're talking about. Okay.
By the way, but
Right. Liam Neeson.
yep, that's it.
The trying to think through it while I horribly play Hotline Miami 2. I enjoyed the Hellraiser series quite a bit.
Clive Barker?
Yep. I
Oh,
have
yeah,
such
definitely.
things to show you. And a lot of it isn't because I particularly hold it to be scary. It's just it just hits me the right way. Like I enjoy watching the first 3 or so movies. I enjoy seeing these horrible people seek power, seek wishes, seek whatever, and then die horribly. I think they're on like number 10 or something stupid like that. Like it's franchise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, 10. Including comic books, and there's comic books and stuff like that with it. Pinhead, the main character, is such an excellent villain, and it's just fantastic. Like I don't know how they do it, like with Doug Bradley, that's the actor, but it just works. He has these boasts, like he'll say, we'll tear your soul apart. Go on, trick us again, child, and your suffering will be legendary, even in hell. Pain, how dare you use that word? He's got pins in his head. What you think of pain is only a shadow. Pain has a face. Allow me to show it to you. Gentlemen, I am pain. It's like
Excellent.
it's just like these things you can really do it. It's like ooh, It's got
Interesting.
right. It's all about that delivery because if you're taking it and you go like let's see here, well, tear your soul apart, doesn't have the same thing, or go on now, but trick us again, child, and your suffering will
No. That's good. No, that is good.
I mean, low key, your country fried Southern lawyer is like Satan. Now, Your Honor, this man may have murdered 17 people, but can you blame him?
That is too good.
Smell a little sulfur.
But can you blame him? Yes.
But can you blame him? They was on his property, and Missouri law is very specific about trespasses on property. Your Honor, there is no question that he killed them. Sir, point of order, he mutilated their corpses. He was defending himself. I honestly like satanic lawyers as a concept. Like, it just works for me, and I couldn't, like, it just, like, it, I have such bad accuracy. It just, like, hits it just the right way. Like, can you imagine it? Like, there's a 50 years old, like a 60-year-old, like, woman lawyer who's lived in Hollywood all her life. She's seen all the evil depravity and buried a few bodies. And it's like, hello, darling. How's my adorable director doing today? You know, like, it's this German Fraulein accent. It's different from a masculine German accent. It's this, oh, darling, darling. What bodies do you want me to bury today? You're my favorite, darling. You know, like, there's, like, just talking about, like, the delivery of horror, it's so important. Like,
Absolutely.
you can't just, like, have somebody say something like that. Like, darling, what bodies do you want me to bury today? No, it's like, darling, I love it when you call, but I know that you only call me when you have bodies to bury. Like, you
Absolutely.
can...
You have to, you have to have fun doing it, and then that translate. You have to love what you're doing,
Yep.
and let's finally talk about it. Bela Lugosi, Dracula, I mean, that guy, I mean, where would we be without Bela?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, his
Like,
delivery on, and some of those lines, some of that dialogue, kind of rough.
yeah.
But he made it work. Bela Lugosi,
Yeah. Like, people give Van Helsing a lot of junk, but the delivery of the lines
They're dumb.
was fantastic.
It's a great movie.
It's an amazing movie. It's probably one of the best Halloween movies ever made. And it's got Dracula, Werewolf, and Frankenstein just in one movie working together. But the Dracula, he threw himself into it. Like, all the characters, like, threw themselves into their roles and parts and didn't blink at it. Like, Dracula's dancing with the girl, da da da, and then you look in the mirror and there's no one dancing but the girl, and he's holding him up because all the vampires are invisible. Or, like, when the bride starts screaming when one of their own is killed, it's like they knew that if they blinked, if they held back from hamming it up to the absolute uttermost, this movie would have been utterly unwatchable. And it's important, that stuff. It's fantastic.
It truly, truly is. It's a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything to add to that except it's great.
R.I.P. Bela Lugosi. Bela Lugosi's dead. Undead.
Megabuster Shepard says Hollywood needs to be the villains more, in my opinion. Yeah.
Oh, that's in there. That's gonna be in Jim Donovan's focus, for his stories. Like, he's gonna have some Hollywood villains. It's gonna be great.
Now I know that I'm not going to say who because he might not want me saying his name, but I know somebody who works, like, not in Hollywood but as an extra around Hollywood. And according to him, you absolutely, the Thousand Island stares of the abused children are very much real.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah.
And
like, it's a thing.
he goes, if however bad you think it is, it's probably. And he goes, yes, like, the rumors are true. It is that bad.
Mm-hmm.
and I won't I won't say who it is because I don't think that he'd want me to mention his name, or he might not want me to. I'll let him say it himself if he does. But he works as he works as an extra in Hollywood, and he said like not that he's like dug into it or whatever, but you could just tell when you work with the child actors, you could see the Thousand Island. Wow, that's a dressing. That's
The Thousand
Yard,
Islands, like
right?
like one of them just goes to the thing, and then all of a sudden they start screaming, and it's like Thousand Island, Steven Spielberg, Thousand Island. It's like, okay, dude, I don't know what that was about,
Hey,
but
well, you know what? Maybe it's Epstein Island.
Thousand Yards there.
right.
Thousand Island is a dressing, and not a very good one. No, actually, that's not true. It's great on Rubens. I love Thousand Island dressing on Rubens, but whatever. The point is that, yeah, Hollywood very much can stand to be the villains. This was my problem if you remember the movie La La Land.
Right. Never saw it, but I know what you're talking about.
La La Land was a pretty good movie. If you like musicals, at least, especially. I know some people just can't stand them. I like them.
Love the
There
Shrek
you go.
musical, but
There you go. Shrek the musical.
love
classic.
Shrek the musical.
But La La Land was pretty good. My problem with La La Land was that it purported to be a more quote-unquote realistic take on like the Hollywood lifestyle and living the dream and whatever. But the problem with this is that if it had really wanted to be the more realistic take on it, at no point in the movie was Emma Stone ever asked to suck a producer's dick for a role.
Yep.
And like that is not a joke. I am not saying this to be funny. I mean seriously, that if they were trying to make a more serious version of this movie, where was the casting couch?
Right.
I didn't see it. It wasn't there. They
Isn't
had this kind of old school romance where they would visit, they didn't live together, but they'd visit each other, and you could, I guess, just because it's the modern era and they don't seem to have any religion, they're probably sleeping with each other, but they deliberately don't go out of their way to point this out, which is kind of refreshing because they were going for a more old school musical feel, but they were sort of trying to have their cake and eat it too. Go for that old school musical feel, while at the same time going like, but the Hollywood dream is a difficult one or whatever. But that's the thing. Like, if you're trying to say this is the more realistic look at the Hollywood dream, at least I know when I watch Singing in the Rain, for example, it's not it's a movie. I'm not getting real Hollywood if I'm watching Singing in the Rain. La La Land is pretending otherwise. But La La Land is just as fake, because if La La Land weren't fake, Emma Stone would have been on the casting couch at some point, or at the very least, she would have been asked.
Oh, she would have already. She's
deliberate.
already gone. She's already been there. She has to.
Of course, there's no question this is the case. And I know, look, I have friends of the family, people who are stars in movies, but indie movies, good movies, by the way. If you ever watch Getting Grace, good film. But I happen to know that family, and like, the mother in the family keeps a very tight watch on everything, and she's working with like a Christian production company and whatever. That's kind of what you need to do. You'll notice those child stars that survived and became, without being abused, it's generally because they had parents who ran a very tight ship and watched them like hawks. And that's kind of what you need. But if Emma Stone is just a single young woman trying to make it in Hollywood by going to audition after audition, she's going to be asked to go on the casting couch at some point. And if you're not going to portray that, don't try and pretend that you're trying to give me a real, more raw Hollywood experience, because you're absolutely not. At least Singing in the Rain is making no bones about the fact that it's a film and it's fun.
I don't think they marketed it that way, though. I thought the way they were advertising La La Land was just like, oh, a tribute to the old Hollywood days of yore.
Right,
Watch.
but the plot of the movie, so the plot of La La Land is that Emma Stone and crap, I can't remember the name of the other actor, the sexiest man alive. Yeah.
Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I don't even
Ryan
know.
Gosling. I'm surprised. Anyway, so Ryan Gosling wants to start a jazz club, but in LA, so that's impossible because that's and Emma Stone wants to make it as an actress, and they meet each other and fall, and after after they don't get along at first because Hollywood, they fall in love and they have this Hollywood romance. Then Ryan Gosling, in their version of being offered the ticket, he like sells out and does music that he doesn't like for big money, while Emma Stone is getting turned, and he makes a ton of money but not doing the music he wants. And Emma Stone, meanwhile, is striking out audition after audition, and the last straw is he doesn't show up to her one-man show, her one-woman show. But then, and well, it's not funny, really. It's just the plot. But then they break up, and of course, right? But then he sees she leaves the apartment that they're in, and he hears the phone call, and they want to talk, and somebody wants to talk to her. So he drives down to her house, and he convinces her to go there with him. And then she has to audition for them, and then they're sitting with each other afterward, and they go, we'll always remember our time together, but it's not going to work out, right? And then they flash forward to years later, and he has his club, and she's a successful actress, but she married someone else. So obviously, the idea behind the story is that their dreams ultimately they prioritize their dreams over each other, and whether that was the right decision or not. And they accomplished their dreams, but they lost each other, and that's supposed to be their commentary on the Hollywood musical of having it all. Like, you can't. But my problem with it as a commentary is it's not any more honest of a commentary on the Hollywood musical than anything else. It's also more typical Hollywood navel gazing. It's a movie. Obviously, it got nominated for tons of awards. Of course, it was. It was a movie about Hollywood. They love
Yep.
that shit. And believe it or not, I actually enjoy the movie. It's pretty fun. The music is very good. They have a song early on called "Waste of a Lovely Night," where they're basically singing about how it's a beautiful night out and it's a great romantic evening, and it's a shame that they're there with each other because if it were anybody else, it would be really romantic. It's a fun song, all sorts of things like that. My problem is the commentary that they're trying to give is not honest. It's not any more honest than Singing in the Rain is. The difference is that Singing in the Rain is not presented to me as some sort of commentary on Hollywood. It's a light, fluffy musical comedy. Yeah.
Oh no, I get it. I mean, Hollywood, I mean, what else can be said? But I feel like if we're gonna be talking about spooky stuff, Halloween, horror, and Hollywood, we got to talk about Mulholland Drive, and we got to talk about David Lynch.
I have never watched anything by David Lynch.
I keep trying to get into Twin Peaks, and I never get past the first episode.
Was David Lynch 7?
I don't know.
David Lynch was Blue Velvet, Eraserhead.
Eraserhead's pretty famous. I don't.
No, that's David Fincher. David Fincher directed the movie 7, which is like a serial killer movie.
Yeah, if I'm correct, he did Eraserhead and Blue Velvet, Mulholland Drive, Lost Highway, things like that. And of course, obviously, Twin Peaks.
I've yet to get the appeal of Twin Peaks. I understand what people say about it, and I respect it by reputation, but I don't know. I haven't been able to get into it like people do.
I have more
experience
with
it.
Mulholland Drive. I've seen Mulholland Drive way more than I have any of the other stuff that Lynch has done. Mulholland Drive is really interesting. I mean, if you want to watch something that at least somewhat maybe tries to portray the corruption of Hollywood and actors and actresses and, insanity.
Right.
Exploitation. Demonic mishaps. I don't want to spoil anything.
Right.
I have, yeah. You want to know what I want to watch? I've been watching Nostalgia Critics Channel Awesome has been doing a series on Twilight Zone episodes, and I do want to try watching the Twilight Zone. I've watched 2 episodes from them. Uh, I watched one that was about a German who visits a concentration camp that he was like the guard, and then he gets attacked by the ghosts or something, and it was kind of cheesy.
Yeah.
But it's also not one of the more famous episodes. And I watched one that was an adaptation of An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge.
Oh, okay, cool.
It was actually like Rod Serling announces at the beginning. It was a movie that was presented at like the Cannes Film Festival or something that the Twilight Zone was presenting. Those are the only 2 Twilight episodes I've seen, though I know several others just because they're so famous and in the popular culture. You know, I know To Serve Man. I know God, what's the one? You know, where there's a nuclear bomb and the dude who only wants to read and then he breaks his glasses.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That was the
But I
Twilight
had
Zone.
time now.
Exactly, that's it.
There's another
I
famous one
really
where
want to watch Twilight Zone because honestly, like it sounds like I would enjoy it. And my parents tell me, you know, that right, like for them, the Twilight Zone was huge at the time, and
oh yeah,
everybody loved it.
There's a little too much politics in Twilight Zone, but I mean, the material is good enough that it's easy enough to just forget about the social and the
But
political commentary.
here's the thing, Ben and I'm going to say, I think Ben agrees with me. He'll contradict me if he doesn't.
it's
I
true.
have absolutely no problem if there are social or political messages in a show. I have a problem with SJWs. I am very open about this. People who tell me, you know, well, isn't that a double standard? You would condemn it for them? No, I wouldn't. You're absolutely right. There is a double standard. This is because my standard for the good, true, and beautiful is much lower than my standard for the degenerate and the evil. Rod Serling had a very moral core. So the fact that
I think he cut out. Can't hear him.
Yeah, same here.
his episodes
Sometimes his internet cuts out and like he'll come in all at once, so you just gotta wait it out.
Okay.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have much to add. Basically, what I'm saying is that the Twilight Zone has a moral core to it because Rod Serling was a very moral person. It was not degenerate. If anything, it was quite the opposite. So I have no problem with the moral messages of the.
No, nor should you.
Now, I would have a problem if it were SJW nonsense like Netflix, and that's why I'm unmoved by appeals to, like, you know, the Netflix version of the Twilight Zone. Netflix goes, you know, and people who write comics too, political messages have always been there in comics. Well, yes, but the political messages weren't always evil. You know, like, maybe we should stop pretending here. You know, maybe they're actually correct. You know what? You're right. You're absolutely right. The problem is your message is wrong and bad. So, I don't want to hear it.
Right.
And it's obnoxious. This is why I kind of go away from some fellow conservatives. It's like I just don't want any politics in it. No, you know what? I'm actually kind of tired of it at this point. Like I really wouldn't care if your politics were the politics that I agreed with. Like
Right.
my problem is that you're evil. So and I'm not going to pretend otherwise anymore. And you know what? SJWs who point out that comics were always political, maybe they were right.
Yep.
Maybe they have a point. Maybe comics were always political, but they weren't always evil.
I think if they were always political, which, you know, again, may or may not be true, but at least whatever was there, the material was something that you could go back and forth on. and you can interpret it in many different ways. You could avoid it if you wanted to. You could embrace it if you wanted to. It wasn't something so abrasive, if that's the right word.
Yes. But that's the thing. I've seen people, for example, mention that they thought, like, there was a message or something in a John C. Wright novel that they thought was hammered in too over the top or whatever. And I was like, you know what? I kind of agree with it, but not as a criticism. Like, if you are reading this message there, you are absolutely correct. The difference is John C. Wright is not evil and degenerate, and his message is a good one.
Right.
So, I realize, however, that I am now against like modern orthodoxy. Then there are the Brian Niemeyers of the world, and his contention, with his contention, for example, with COVID, and this is just indicative of his own style, is that the big problem with Trump was that he did not institute a tyrannical-ish power grab to institute a right-wing theocracy.
Please. Yes.
That was like legitimately that seems to be something I might be exaggerating slightly. Nor, by the way, am I saying this as a criticism of Brian. I am not. Brian is a big boy and can argue his point very. I suggest you check it out. But his own blog, brianniemeyer.com.
Mm-hmm.
But his argument, John Wright, is on his blog saying that Trump has been abiding by the limits of the Constitution. John's absolutely correct. Brian is saying, well, the reason that Trump hasn't done enough is because he could have used COVID as a pretext to seize power, and he hasn't, and now we're all doomed. A rather depressing view, but it certainly has merit.
We're not at the point where a person could seize power and be accepted as a society.
No, but you pointed out someone in Hungary, like, they used COVID to pass, some sort of religious laws or whatever. And he's like, basically, Trump had all sorts of things that he could have done using COVID as a pretext, and he did not do it because he was trying to abide by the limits of the Constitution. I think that his read is correct. Whether this is a good thing or not, your mileage may vary, I suppose.
There's a certain element of political horror to the whole situation.
Dr. Strangelove.
Yes.
Doctor Strangelove is one of those weird movies where I don't know anybody who likes it or has seen it.
You see, I've seen it, I just didn't get it. There were some things that were pretty funny.
Kubrick was an SJW, so
Yeah.
Or he was like a proto SJW, so I doubt I would like it. I suppose Kubrick was also an artist.
Yes.
So I'm sure that there is something to be gained from it.
Whether you want to see it as anti-war, pro-war, or completely apolitical, I think the movie does have merit. If you want to look at it from a political horror standpoint, where you see all of the most corrupt people and you are in the palm of their hands. These people who are squabbling and backstabbing and doing this and doing a little bit of that, I mean, they have the world in their hands. And what they decide to do with their power in the midst of all of this, I mean, that's something that's very interesting.
The only line in that movie I know is, "Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room." And that's a pretty good line. I admit that that's a pretty witty line. Because Kubrick was kind of a proto SJW, but he was also an artist, so I'm sure there's some, or at least I wouldn't be surprised if there was something of value in the movie. Joss Whedon was like that once upon a time until he turned full potato.
Full potato?
I don't really know. I have no idea what happened with him, but I guess his wife left him. I don't know. Who cares?
Who is this?
Joss Whedon.
Joss Whedon was another one who Firefly, Avengers. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so out of the loop with all the.
He was a
The-
pro. He was definitely always an SJW, but he was an art. But he was an artist once upon a time. I think that's gone away now.
Yep.
But if I'm wrong, there was definitely an honesty to his earlier stuff, though, especially Firefly. Everybody points to Tim Minear as the guy who made Firefly not, and that's fair. But Joss Whedon did have to agree to work with the guy, so yeah, there is that. I think Firefly does hold up. I think Serenity does hold up.
I
I
am.
think it is a good show and a good movie, though I don't think. I think it's probably not as good as its reputation at the time, but that doesn't mean much. I think it's
If we're
pretty good, and I enjoy it very much.
if we're keeping on the topic of horror and vampires and such, I am very displeased with what's gone on with Blade and what they intend to do with Blade.
What do they intend to do with Blade? I haven't heard anything at all.
Just the fact that Blade is even being made a more like just no more sequels, no more reboots, no more remakes. Just let it all be.
Counter argument. Here's my counter argument to that. I want Hollywood to fail and die. So by all means, keep going. I've made my
Oh,
family very mad with this because they mentioned Disney's dying or whatever, and I said
right.
good, and they've gotten mad at me.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's one way to look at
They
it.
go,
But I mean, I'm not happy
wouldn't
about
you
it.
rather have them revive or whatever? I said nope. Not while the people, that would mean that the people who are running it would gain success, and I do not want them to gain success because they're all horrendously horrible people. So truly horrifically awful human beings. So no, I hope Disney dies. I hope it dies I hope it dies a fast death. I think that Vox Day has pointed out that, or has tried to make a case at least, and I don't know if I fully agree with him, that even early Disney, while not SJW influenced, was never as good as it could have been because Disney was always in it for the money, but not just in it for the money, like he wanted to be a success, as in Disney was in it purely for the money. He was a capitalist businessman through and through, and that was why he did everything. And this does kind of infect his movies to a point. For example, the dwarfs of Snow White. C.S. Lewis called Snow White a mix of genius and uh, you know, I guess drivel. I can't remember the exact word he used. Pablum, drivel, whatever. Right?
Okay.
So he said that there is a scene in Snow White. He goes, the genius is there's a scene in Snow White where she's in this forest and you see the eyes of the animals around her, and it looks like she's surrounded by these animals. And then they step forward and it's all the cute woodland creatures surrounding Snow White. He said that was brilliant, playing on previous fairy tale tropes, subverting them in an intelligent way without betraying, the roots of the fairy tale. Great stuff. And then he criticized the dwarves. And it's interesting that he mentions the dwarves because because they really had nothing to do with the dwarves of the original stories. They really didn't connect to anything. They were just funny little short people. And it's interesting that he mentions the dwarves specifically because that goes back to what Vox Day was saying about Disney was not doing it for the art. He was not doing it to make good work. He was doing it for the money. And his rule with the dwarves, I remember this, was that if somebody could write a joke with the dwarves that would make him laugh, they would get a raise. That was it. That was what the dwarves were to him. The dwarves were meant to be funny little people, and you were
Right.
supposed to just make the audience laugh. Uh,
A lot of projects that Disney did with horror always fell by the wayside and got trapped in vortexes, like with the Haunted Mansion ride and the Black Cauldron ride that apparently never happened, but they did it once in Japan or something like that. The Black
well, they
Cauldron
did the Black
movie.
Cauldron. Yeah, the Black Cauldron movie that bombed spectacularly and nearly killed Disney Animation in its cradle, or well, not in its cradle, in its middle age, I guess I should say. Uh, it nearly killed Disney animation, and it's a sad thing to look back on that and think, would it have been better if it had? Maybe. Because what followed from that was the Disney Renaissance, and in retrospect, the Disney Renaissance was a very mixed bag of movies. You get works of genius like Beauty and the Beast, and even to a lesser extent, The Lion King. You get proto SJW, and I wouldn't call it SJW, but it is proto SJW, in The Little Mermaid, and in Hunchback of Notre Dame to a lesser extent. And then you get things that were really just for the money, which was like Hercules and whatever. And it was and the reason that the Disney Renaissance, Walt Disney would have been proud of the Renaissance because it was made off of a very rigid formula, those movies. And the Disney Renaissance was very much about making that money more than anything else. And
James
it was very
Woods
good at that.
is awesome.
James Woods is awesome, and I actually quite enjoy Hercules, but it's also not a very cohesive film. It's a bit of the plot of it is a mess. It tries to combine Rocky and Superman, and those two don't really fit with each other. It also it's unclear what the aesthetic is really going for. With that said, I like the style of it. I like James Woods. I like the music in Hercules a lot. I like the musical style. And I really like Greek mythology, so anything that does anything with that is always going to get a thumbs up from me. But Hercules was a cash grab, It was a cash grab that they told the directors to make because they kept promising the directors that they could make Treasure Planet. And the directors and the story of Hercules is actually kind of hilarious because the directors really wanted to make Treasure Planet. Like they were super passionate about this, space version of
Robinson
Treasure
Crusoe.
Island. Right.
Oh yeah, Treasure Island. Treasure Island, yeah.
Yeah, same author. But so they were really passionate about this, and Disney was like, I don't know, that sounds dumb. And they were like, no, man, I'm telling you, this is going to be great. So tell you what, make us a hit and we'll do it. And they kept making hit after hit. And Disney would just go, one more hit and I'll do it. Finally, they said, okay, you direct the movie this time. If you can turn Hercules into a hit, you could do it. And Hercules was a hit, but it was not as big a hit, I think, as they wanted it to be. But they still kind of let them do it, but with a low budget. And Treasure Planet was not marketed very well by Disney, even though it's a pretty good movie. I enjoy Treasure Planet quite a bit.
Now, I believe Hercules was originally art designed in the beginning by Gerald Scarfe, who did the Pink Floyd art.
Yeah, there's a lot of stylization in Hercules that's really cool to look at.
Yeah. And honestly, Hades is pretty amazing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Hades is phenomenal. Okay, first of all, I love James. Basically, anything James Woods is in is awesome. James Woods is incredible. I mean, as an actor, as a person.
Dad, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. Vampires. Anybody ever seen Vampires with James Woods? Videodrome. Great horror movies here with James Woods. Like, watch them. They're phenomenal. Cronenberg. I mean, I know we were talking about The Fly earlier. In The Thing. If you want to watch James Woods plus Cronenberg, watch Videodrome.
I've heard nothing but good things about it.
The Fly.
I feel like I wouldn't like Cronenberg very much from what I know about him, so I don't know.
You should watch his movie. I think he did Society, didn't he? Wasn't that him? I think it's the movie about like how all these like rich people are in this like strange cult. I won't spoil anything about the end of the movie or anything else, but I think the whole movie is just about like elite society. That's why it's called Society. I think that I'm pretty sure that was Cronenberg.
I don't know. I referenced I like Cronenberg. I like Harryhausen. Those are like the two things that really kind of make me tick of those types. Megabuster Shepherd says, when it comes to Hollywood, my opinion is best summed up by the immortal words of Horace Lupercal, "Let the galaxy burn." You're absolutely right.
No, I was wrong. I just checked it up on Wikipedia. Society is directed by Brian Yuzna.
Huh.
Yeah, but it definitely felt like a Cronenberg movie when I was watching it. So, anyway, to correct myself, Brian Yuzna directed Society, 1989.
Brian Yuzna, huh? Yeah, the next horror movies I'm gonna watch Bride of Frankenstein, and I'm gonna watch John Carpenter's The Thing. I may watch Howard Hawks' The Thing if I have time, though I don't have a lot of that.
If this is correct, Brian Yuzna did Reanimator? Oh, that's incredible. Reanimator from Beyond. Man, I'm kicking myself here. I can't believe I didn't know this. Necronomicon, Reanimator, From Beyond. This guy's done really incredible movies.
I want to see that one movie about the journalist trying to find that author who can warp reality. I think that's what movie is that called? I can't remember it.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
Wow, Brian Yuzna, producer of all these movies, director, writer, actor. I gotta look more into this guy's stuff.
I've never heard of any of those, I'm afraid.
You haven't watched Reanimator?
Never heard of it.
It's based off the Lovecraft story.
I have tried to read Lovecraft a couple times. I've never finished any of his stuff, but that's more because there was nothing wrong with Lovecraft himself. One of those things where, occasionally I'll read something, get distracted, and forget about it. Lovecraft, when I decided I was going to read him, it was one of those things where I was in the middle of reading him, got distracted, and forgot I was reading him. So I haven't read Lovecraft.
Yeah, Reanimator's a story
I have
about
nothing against Lovecraft. I'm sure I'd like it, but
basically zombies bringing people back from the dead, evil scientists.
Interesting. Makes me think, it actually does make me think of Plan 9 from Outer Space, though. Sadly enough.
Oh man, Reanimator is way better than that, though. It actually has value as a good movie because it's good and not just because it's ironically good.
Not just because night and day scenes literally happen, within seconds of each other. Full daylight to full nighttime. Or that part of the set is lit and another part of the set is not, and they just ignore it.
It's pretty funny, actually.
Or that the cockpit of the plane isn't just like a cardboard semicircle on a stick that's supposed to be the steering wheel of the plane, and two guys in chairs with a curtain behind them.
Wow.
Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Reanimator, 1985, directed by Stuart Gordon, produced by Brian Yuzna, based on Herbert West's Reanimator by H.P. Lovecraft.
Interesting. I'm gonna need to read Lovecraft.
Absolutely.
Yes. Like, it's not that, like, his stuff is like, oh wow, so amazing. Like, it's that he hit the original stuff for a lot of what we take for granted today. and so it's always worth it to sort of check him out and see it. Like recently, I saw The Color Out of Space. That was the last movie I saw before the Coof. And
Okay, wasn't Nicolas Cage awesome in that movie? Regardless
so
of what you thought of, yeah.
Much better than he had any right to be. And the scares were actually really good. Like when the mother and the kid fused, like
Right.
oh please no.
I love when he's becoming his father, like the shadow of his father, basically is like taking over his inner psyche. And he starts doing those like accents and swearing at everyone.
And it's like, oh, spooky.
The trees, the creatures, the llama or the alpaca, whatever they were.
Yep.
Although
oh,
I noticed something in that movie is that for some reason, I don't know why, but the director wanted to focus on triangles throughout the whole movie. It was like the triangle hairpiece, the triangle window, the triangle shape this or that, or the marking on her forehead or whatever. It was like I don't know what they were going for with the whole triangle mutate. Like I don't know what that was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. He used magenta because magenta is an artificial color. He used triangles. Triangles are basically, how do I want to put it? They're otherworldly, and they have implications of otherworldliness in shape theory. They're also sharp and dangerous. They have a sort of like edginess to them that things like squares and circles don't have. There's a lot to it.
Yeah, but like it almost made me feel like he was trying to imply that the daughter summoned the color out of space. So it's like all this triangle occult stuff, all this like other stuff. It's just
She played witchy games and she got witchy burns. Well, I do recommend people watch The Color Out of Space. That is worth it.
I'll try and read it first.
It's completely different from the story. You honestly don't have to.
Right.
Let's see here.
And the story is good enough that it won't get ruined. Like if you watch the movie first, you won't be like, "Oh man, the movie ruined it for me." No. The story is fine on its own. After the movie, before the movie, during the movie, whatever.
Yep. There's a lot to it, and I really appreciate it. Let's get rid of this. Yeah. Yeah. So we've been talking for a couple hours.
Oh dear.
Right.
Which isn't so bad, but
no, not at all. But yeah, I have work tomorrow,
and I'm a little bit. I don't have work tomorrow, but I'm a little bit done. So, just a little. It's not even like it's just done for the day, done for the week. Someday I won't have to work at my job anymore, and instead I will have to work at other jobs. But we'll see how that goes. But gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining us. Thank you for chatting with me about these things I am interested in. Megabuster Shepherd has the last comments. Disney's descent into wokeness reminds me of the downfall of friendship as magic. My Little Pony, that is. Started out as a tightly written show by left-leaning people and degraded into woke territory over time. That is certainly true. My Little Pony Friendship and Magic first seasons were absolutely amazing, well-written, enjoyable at every age, and it sort of declined over time. And even though in the last few seasons they did kind of start making fun of their own audience, the SJW part of it anyway, It still never quite hit where it was supposed to be. I'm still mad about their treatment of Rainbow Dash. He says, it was fun listening, guys. We'll check out the other podcasts later. Absolutely. And guys, if you've listened this far and you like our work, please, 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 please watch Pinkerton's Ghosts. Pinkerton's Ghosts is the best new horror podcast this year. Sadly, it doesn't beat out the year itself, but the horror of it is absolutely fantastic. Anthony just set out a new episode, The Hunted, which is a certainly excellent pulpy horror vibe. Matthew, do you have a last word for us?
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween, Anthony.
Yay.
Anthony, what do you got to say?
Watch our show.
Yes, absolutely. All right, guys. Have a good one. And
You
thank you
too.
for watching.